Old Guy Talks is all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't procrastinate. Opt in now. This is Orson, the Old Guy from www.oldguytalks.com with a special guest in the house tonight, Larry Winget, who is, well, he's known as the Pitbull of personal development. Larry is a no-nonsense kind of guy, tells us like he sees it. He's been on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Dr. Phil, PBS, and more. He has spoken to over 400 of the 500 Fortune companies, and some of them more than once. So apparently they like you and invite you back.
That's right.
Yeah. He's been the author of 6 New York Times bestsellers. What's Wrong with Damn Near Everything? You're Broke Because You Want to Be. Grow a Pair. Shut Up. It's Called Work for a Reason. Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. The Idiot Factor. No Time for Tact. And People Are Idiots, and I Can Prove It. So Larry definitely likes to have a little bit of edge to him, and we're hopefully going to see that tonight. So Larry, let's talk a little bit about you and how you got into the space. And I'm going to kind of go to you. You at age 45, you had a big transition in your life. What happened there, and tell us a little bit about how that changed the course of your life.
Well, I was a typical motivational speaker. By the way, thanks for having me. Typical motivational speaker out there making people laugh and feel good about themselves. And everybody else was feeling good about themselves except for me. I got to the point I hated every word that came out of my mouth, and I hated my audiences, didn't like what I was doing much for a living anymore. Got to the point, didn't like my wife, didn't like my staff, didn't like anything. And really it was a result of not liking myself very much, because I just felt like the biggest whore in the world. I'd speak on anything, anytime, for any amount of money, and I was very successful at the time, and it just wasn't working for me. So I told my sweet wife, I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm leaving. I lived in Oklahoma at the time, and I got in my car and drove to Sedona, Arizona, and I said, I'll call you when I'm ready, and left my manager. I said, I don't know what the business is going to look like. And I went to Sedona and parked myself in a hotel with a couple of bottles of good liquor and a couple of boxes of good cigars and some music and a big stack of books. And I sat and tried to figure things out. And I was watching TV one night, and I was watching Dennis Miller. And Dennis Miller in the interview was talking about his transition from sort of a sketch comedian to the Dennis Miller we know him as today. And he was talking about what most comedians do is go on stage to endear themselves to the audience so the audience will like them. He said, what I had to realize was I wasn't a very endearing person, so I gave it up. And he said, and that's when I became really who I am today, and it changed my career. That instant when he said, I'm not a very endearing person, so I gave it up, I said, well, that's it for me. I'll just give it up. I'm not very endearing either. And I called it was that fast. I called my wife and said, I think I figured it out. I'm going to be okay. And called my manager, and I said, I have no idea what the business will look like, but it's not going to look like what it has in the past. And everybody said, well, okay. And they went with me on this little journey. And next time I went on stage, a guy heckled me. And I wasn't used to being heckled. And I turned on him and I said, buddy, you ought to shut up, stop whining, and get a life. And the audience gave me a standing ovation on the spot. And I thought, that's a pretty good line. I'm going to hang on to that. And then I started telling that story about the guy heckling me and me saying that to him. And it became part of the deal. And I said, someday I'm going to write a book called Shut Up, Stop Whining, Get a Life. And I did. And it went to #1 on the bestseller list. And what I realized was that people, I believe in this business, the speaking industry and writing and so forth, people don't really much believe what you have to say. They barely listen to what you have to say. But they always listen to see if you believe what you had to say. Mm-hmm. And that was my problem. I just stopped believing what I was saying with all that typical motivational stuff. So I sort of became the contrarian of the personal development industry, and went after every motivational cliche that was out there, because I just realized it was mostly bullshit. this positive attitude stuff, that doesn't work. You can be positive, but positively stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where most people are. And it takes more than all of those things. I'm a big believer in being optimistic, but I think you got to get negative about your life before you can create positive change in your life. And we can't go around telling everybody, oh, just love who you are and feel good about yourself. That's not working. Somebody's got to say, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't be acting this way. I deserve better than this, and I expect more from myself than this. And you don't get that from just feeling good about yourself. So when I took that tact and went on stage and started saying what I believe, that's when the marketplace responded very well to me. And so I felt good about it. They were responding well to it. And it really came as a result of me being willing to be completely authentic in everything that I do.
Okay. So you mentioned the word pain, and I know you're a big believer that pain is a necessary component in terms of getting results and
Yeah.
feeling it. Can you talk a little bit about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think, when I started out in this industry as a sales trainer and then became the motivational speaker. And I believe the key to selling is not in the solution. The key to selling is understanding the pain that people are going through. The sale is made in you getting what they're dealing with. And everything that is a solution solves a problem, or nobody would ever buy anything. Until people start to understand the problems and the pain that people are going through, they're not going to be very successful. And so what I believe that if you can get people to emotionally feel the pain that they're dealing with, that's when they make the decision to change it. Typically, especially in the personal development industry, we allow people to suffer in comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not much about letting people suffer in comfort. So I make them as uncomfortable as I can. That's why I've trademarked I'm the world's only irritational speaker. And I have two trademarks, three. I've got Shut Up, Stop Whining, Get a Life, the Pitbull of personal development, and the world's only irritational speaker. See, motivational speakers will try to get you to go to a better place because it's so pretty and so wonderful and you ought to want to go over there. I don't think that works. People don't move from pleasure, they move from pain. My ideas from an irritational speaker standpoint is I can make you so irritated and so uncomfortable with where you are, you'll go any place else. And I just think it's a more powerful approach.
Oh, I totally agree. I think people underestimate the energy that you can derive if you can focus that pain in a constructive way. I think
in the constructive way is where it can get lost. Mm-hmm. Because I think you got to make people hurt and leave them with it for a while. I want people to feel stupid. I'm not into saying, oh, it's all going to be all right. Honey, it's okay. It's a cold, cruel world out there. No, chances are it's not going to be all right. You better get off your ass and go to work. You've been stupid, and you got to stop being stupid. Everything I've done for 30 years in this industry has been based on the oldest joke of all time. And the oldest joke of all time is man goes into the doctor and says, hey, doctor, it hurts when I do that. And the doctor says, well, then don't do that. I think people got to wake up to the fact that what they're doing isn't working. And that's what's causing the life that they're living. I have one central point of view to everything I've done. That's that life's your own damn fault. You thought it, you did it, you said it. There are consequences. Life is a consequence, positively and negative. I'm successful, that's my fault. If I'm broke, that's my fault. And if people like to argue with me and say, well, I got a lot of things happening to me that aren't my fault. Well, I'm not going to argue with you for a second. Okay, let's just say something horrible fell out of the sky and hit you on the head. What you do about it's still your fault. But we have to feel that pain for us to be willing to do whatever it takes in order to get past it. But we don't let people feel the pain anymore. We save them. And I think we ought to stop saving people. I think we ought to let them hurt.
Well, I think a lot of times people get bailed out too early and don't find the power that they have to change their lives.
Well, look, that's how we're screwing up. You know, the most important book I ever wrote is my parenting book, Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. I've written some really good books, but that's my most important. And if there's any place we're screwing up right now in society, is we got a lot of lousy parenting going on out there. Mm-hmm. We don't want our kids to experience any failure. The number one fastest growing sport for little kids right now is yoga. Well, first of all, yoga is not a sport. Nobody's keeping score. If you're not keeping score, we can't really call it a sport. And the reason that parents are clamoring to yoga is you don't fall down, you don't get hurt, you don't lose, you don't get touched by anyone else, you don't really interact with anybody else. It's something you do all by yourself. And so that's where we are in society. Don't let little Johnny or Sally or Susie fall down and get hurt. Don't let her feelings get hurt. Don't let them scuff up their knees or get hurt in any single way, because we have to save them. That's our job as a parent. We're screwing up our kids. We don't let them fail. We screw up. That's why we got a society right now who's not working very hard, because we've never let them fail. We've prepared everybody for success. We're not preparing a damn person for failure. And yet we're going to experience a whole lot more failure in our life than we ever will success.
You know, I'm laughing here. One of my friends here just typed in, Orris knows how to be irritating.
Well, there you go. Thank you and move on.
he's actually he's my closest friend. So, Larry, since we're talking about this, kids and all this stuff, let's go to talking about the challenges of being a man in the 21st century, and also raising young boys to be men in the 21st century, which I think has a lot of there's a lot of issues, a lot of things going on that we certainly did not face. At least I didn't think we faced it at this time, and I just kind of give some facts about, the educational gap, huge difference in terms of males graduating and females graduating from college and getting into professional schools. There's lots of falsehoods about teachers preferring boys to girls in school and calling on them first, which is actually totally false. A lot of boys have targets on their backs, especially if you're an extrovert. I refer to it as a chemical castration with all these drugs to sedate boys and not to let them be boys and young men like they do. Let's just kind of go into some of this stuff.
Yeah, we sedate boys and put them on psychotropic drugs more than we do girls, for sure, and all because little boys are kind of ill-behaved. That's called testosterone going through your system. It's a natural process. And we're robbing little boys of that natural process. My two little grandsons were over here last night, and they were both, my Lord, they were idiots last night. They were all over everywhere, and their mama's yelling at them, and my wife's going crazy. And I went, let's go outside. Because what do you do with little boys who are running around going too crazy? And so let them go outside and run it off. That's just their bodies are chemically responding to what makes them little boys. And we're trying to mask that. And then we make little boys, little boys, grown men are out there apologizing for their masculinity. I did a story last week on Fox News. And it was about toxic masculinity. We got Jonah Hill out there apologizing for the movies he made, Superbad, saying they were too full of toxic masculinity. No, it was called immaturity, and eventually we grow out of some of that stuff. But the problem is we're attacking masculinity and not attacking toxicity, to the point that we have men apologizing simply for the fact they're men. And I'm not in a let boys be boys and that anything's okay. I'm not into that at all. I think it's called responsible behavior. But I told the host on Fox News last week, I said, there are three things I don't have a choice about. That's my gender, my age, and my race. And I'll be damned if I'm going to apologize for any of these three things. And I don't think anybody ought to apologize for their gender. I don't think they ought to apologize for their race. You know, I didn't choose to be white. Nobody chooses to be black. You're just that way. That's how you were born. And I don't apologize for the fact that I'm male. There's nothing inherent to apologize in any of those three things. And as I told her, I said, if I'm being a jerk, attack me for that. Attack behavior, specific behavior. But don't condemn an entire gender or don't condemn old guys like you're talking about, just like I don't think we ought to condemn millennials just because they fall between the ages of 18 and 34. We condemn a small percentage of millennials for stupid behavior, just like I can attack a lot of boomers who have really stupid behavior. Attack behavior, but that's not where we are in society right now. And it makes it hard for guys. It's a confusing time we live in. And I really am fearful for men. And look at the suicide rates. Men commit suicide at 3 times the rate of women. It's tough being a guy right now.
Yeah. Oh, it really is. You know, all the new terminology, all the new male, I'll call them male crimes, mansplaining, patriarchy, all those things are
and
used.
Spreading because you sit in a chair with your legs too far apart.
Well, you know, there's a law against that in New York City.
And you got to make room. You know, again, so we need to apologize for that and things, mansplaining. I'm too stupid to understand good English just because I'm a man. That is so sexist and so insulting to men. And yet men are apologizing. Well, I'm a guy. I must be big, fat, and stupid because that's the way we're portrayed on television.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the typical sitcom. You got big, fat, stupid men who women have to run the family and tell the guys what to do. It's really hard for a guy to know how to grow up these days, and nobody's helping these young guys learn that what it takes to be a good man is the same thing it takes to be a good woman. In other words, what does it take to be a good human being? Core values, honesty, integrity, treating people right, respect, work ethic, being charitable, being kind. Those are the things that really matter. And those got nothing to do with being a guy or being a girl.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this whole political correctness thing is a way to attempt to get people control of people, and it's kind of a sad thing because usually when things go bad, you are looking and searching. In most of the time, and I'm not saying that there aren't women that do this kind of work, but you're looking for somebody you would probably consider to be a toxic male to come and rescue you. Be it whether there's somebody that's trying to attack you, or that the power is down in your house during a storm. There's probably a toxic male out there trying to get that power restored.
He's the guy with pliers on his hip.
Yeah.
He's the guy with a gun on the hip going to protect you from the bad guy outside. Yep, I agree. I agree. And I think that I hope at least that society will at some point shift. You know, when you look at trends in most anything, they shift. You know, when you look at politics, we go too far left, then we go too far right. Then we go too far left again, and it swings way back and forth. And let's hope that this pendulum, when it's swinging around the toxicity of masculinity at some point, kind of comes back to a more centrist view where we start to actually value things that really matter.
Well, to be real honest, I have some serious concerns about there, and it has nothing to do with society, but it has to do with some things that are going on in the world to men, which very many people are not aware of. In terms of one is the generational decline of testosterone levels in men.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating study most people are not aware of.
Sure, and I'm looking at something here from 1987 to 2005. It's really gone down by half, and also sperm counts from 1973 to 2011 are down by 50%. And there's a study of a university in Israel that says if this trend continues, most men in developed countries will not be fertile by 2060. It's just it's like mind-boggling that could be like the problem.
When you combine the physiology along with the psychology, it really does become an alarming state that we're in right now. And that's the physiological side of it. When you add, like I said, the psychological side, we're in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And, I really do believe the most castrating thing that's ever happened to society has been political correctness. I wrote about that in my book, Grow a Pair. In fact, there's a new movie I just heard about last week, and maybe you're aware of it. It's called Tough Guys, Guise. It's done by this liberal guy out there that talks about the cause of violence among men in America. And, he goes back and trashes John Wayne and everybody. And he even had a quote in there from Shark Tales. Do you remember the little cartoon for kids called Shark Tales, where the daddy shark says to the baby shark, he says, son, it's a fish eat fish world out there, and you got to be careful. And this guy says that right there is teaching children that the world is based on violence. And they featured me twice in the movie. I heard about it because it's being shown on college campuses. Features me twice in the movie and features my book, Grow a Pair, as part of the cause. And if they had read my book, Grow a Pair, they would understand that Grow a Pair is about speaking up for yourself. It's got nothing to do with what's hanging between your legs. It's what's between your ears. That's what Grow a Pair means, is standing up for your principles and your core values and speaking up. And but they can spin this stuff in such a way that it makes us look bad, makes us look bad and feel the need to be sorry for it. And that's where little boys are in trouble. They don't know what's going to be acceptable, what's not going to be acceptable, what they're going to be allowed to say. It's a bad situation.
Yeah. Now, the whole thing of even now of dating, was it USC had a form a consensual form that you had to go through a checklist before you could kiss someone. It was just absolutely insane. I was looking at that today. It was like,
I don't think I'd have ever gotten kissed if I said, hey, before I reach over to smooch, could you sign this consent form? Nobody would have ever gotten kissed when I was in high school.
There would be no kids either.
I would have never gotten kissed. Nobody signed a consent form for me.
Oh gosh, yeah. The whole thing on college campuses now and everything is really kind of disturbing, because it's hard for young men to date. It's hard for people to get around and not be worried about being falsely accused of things, of crimes. Now, rape is a serious thing, and sexual assault is a serious thing. But we're seeing so many things now in the press that we're finding that these things are actually are staged, not happening. The most famous one I think is the Duke lacrosse team. You got Mattress Girl at Columbia University. Yep. You've got several other cases where things did not happen. For whatever purposes you want to believe or not believe, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court nomination with Brett Kavanaugh. It's all stuff that's being made up to fulfill an agenda, which really diminishes the actual importance of when it actually truly happens to someone.
Nothing is worse than sexual assault. Really, I can't imagine if I had a daughter or wife involved in that. I think that would just be, it would be hard for me to handle, and you too.
Sure.
And for any man, it's hard for us to imagine that at all. But you're right. It absolutely diminishes real sexual assault when all these false accusations are made. And the trouble is these days that the movement that's out there is that nothing has to be proven. You are guilty until proven innocent. And it's really hard to defend yourself against this stuff. It comes down to a he said, she said, and I'm sorry, if he said it, it's probably not true. That's where it is. Yeah. And it's really unfair right now in society.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I mean, a lot of times it's many years ago. It's decades ago that some of these things were alleged to have happened.
Yeah, and I've certainly got things that I did 40 years ago I'm not particularly proud of.
Sure.
But everybody does. That we all have these things that we're not particularly proud of. But at some point, we need to own it, apologize for it, and move on from it. And right now, we're not letting people. And I'm not saying we got to let people by with sexual assault. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that from what I'm saying. But at some point, I can't be held guilty for sexual assault because I said, you sure look pretty in that dress. And I said it 40 years ago to somebody who happened to work for me. That's not sexual harassment, folks. That was either a sincere compliment or it was called flirting. Mm-hmm. And which is what we used to do back then. And I watched CBS This Morning, and they had Angie Dickinson on. And remember, that was one of the big sex symbols of our day. Angie,
oh yeah, absolutely.
As
it brings a smile just thinking about her.
Oh, she was amazing, and she was part of the Rat Pack, and she dated Sinatra, and all these things. She's 87 years old, 87. And she's just, she looks great. And they were asking her about the Me Too movement and all the accusations that happened in Hollywood and so forth. And she said, flirting's not rape. And an open robe is not rape. And I thought, what an adult way to look at this. We need to go back and say, what's really sexual abuse? Me saying you look pretty today, that's not sexual abuse, and it's not sexual harassment.
No.
And I think it's a shame that the terms have become blurred around that. There are definitions, and it undermines true sexual harassment and true sexual abuse.
Sure.
And so little boys don't know how to act. I mean, and who's going to teach them? I don't know how to act anymore. Do you?
No, you know what, Larry? I just do what I do, and
if
there's consequences, I'll deal with it.
Either I'm with you on that. But good God.
But you have to have a certain amount of resiliency to be able to do that in this time.
Well, it's easier for us too, because we are in that place, because we are old guys. We just say to hell with it. I mean, what are you going to do? That I'm not saying it gives us a pass. I'm not looking for a pass. I'm just saying I'm not willing to apologize any longer for believing that's a nice dress you're wearing. I like to be able to say to my friends, I got a friend, she came over the other night, her and her husband. I said, damn, you look good tonight. And she's a grown-up. She said, well, I do, don't I? And, stood a little taller and strutted herself a little bit. I said, that's a great dress on you. You look terrific. See, I don't see that as sexual harassment.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to say that on a college campus somewhere sometimes.
You can't do that. That's right. You can't do that.
It's amazing what's being passed off as common sense on a college campus these days.
Well, and so you were saying what contributes to society. You got not only the physiology and the psychology, now you've got an educational system that supports that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
they support victim mentality, and it's all being done to you. And then you got the sense of entitlement that steps in. That's why I think we're in trouble. When I wrote my last book, I was on Fox News, and I was talking to Brian Kilmeade on his show after we had just finished the Fox and Friends show. And he said, Larry, at the end of your book, you don't give a lot of hope. How are we going to turn the world around? I said, well, we're not. And he kind of laughed and said, what do you mean we're not? I said, we're not. We're not going to turn anything around. The world can't be turned around. The world is the way it is because that's the way the world is. And the world is happy being that way, or it would change. I believe everything you're going through, that's the way you're accepting it to be that way. The only thing any of us can do is take responsibility for who we are. I have a hard enough time keeping up with me every day. Mm-hmm. I can't change the world. But if I keep my life as straight as I can, stick to my core values, be as good a human being as I can be, and focus on being a good human being, that makes me a good man, which probably makes me a good father and grandfather and husband. All of those things, that's all I can keep up with. And if I do that, and you do that, and the next guy does that, that's all we can do. And if enough of us do it, then at some point the world kind of shifts.
Yeah. Just got a question here from Brian. Is America addicted to victimhood? I think so in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. We love to be a victim. You know that my whole thing is life's your own damn fault, but get somebody to admit that these days.
Yeah.
We're a society of blame.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when you see these quote unquote victims on TV or you hear them on a show, they are the most aggressive victims. Yeah, I can't imagine anybody would be able to take advantage of some of these people the way they profess their victimhood in such an aggressive manner.
Yeah, and it's people who I know based on their politics and their claims that they love to brag about what a loving, inclusive group of people they are. Mm-hmm. And yet I've never been cussed and called names more than when somebody starts off and says, "Let me tell you, I'm a Christian, and you're the sorriest son of a bitch who ever lived." I go, "Well, forgive me."
You say, "Thank you, and please just say a prayer for me, okay?"
So it's these groups of people who kind of pride themselves, and I'm not attacking all Christians, don't say anything about that. I'm not attacking all liberals who talk that way. But it seems to me these groups who pride themselves on their being inclusive aren't being very inclusive of old guys like us.
Yeah, we're kind of looked upon as dinosaurs to a certain extent, being ready to go extinct. What, now, so you have these young males, and we get into older guys, but we kind of our paths are pretty well set. I mean, it'll take I assume for you or for me or for a lot of older guys, it's going to take a major life event to alter our path. Yep. But for young men, and how did they interact with women, and how do women interact with men? Because everybody says, "Oh, I want this nice touchy-feely beta male." I'll refer to him as a beta male. But in reality, they actually hardly ever want to be with that person. I think it's kind of a catch-22 a lot of times for young people in this situation.
I saw a post a while ago by somebody on Instagram, and I wish I had it in front of me right now. It says, "Congratulations, women. We are becoming the men we said we wanted to date." And I think women are as confused as men are right now. I really do. I think society in general, male or female, it's a troubling time for how we communicate. And I don't have a great solution except be a good guy. Do what makes sense. Treat people with respect. And that's why I always go back to the problem. That's what my newest book, What's Wrong with Damn Near Everything's about. It all goes back to core values. And if you have the right core values, I think you end up with the right result. And mainly it's the core value of respect that I think will be the key moving forward. If I treat women with genuine respect from the inside out, well, then that pretty much controls what I say. And that pretty much controls how I interact with them and how I communicate with them. When we lose respect for each other, that's where all the meanness comes from. That's where all the rudeness comes from. It's okay for me to cut you off in traffic in my car because I don't respect you enough. I don't respect your time, your right to be there. And so when you think about all the things we've got going on, it comes down to a lack of respect. So I think we've got to reinforce and enforce respect for each other.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the old concept of something, a word that's not often tossed about anymore, is being a gentleman.
Yeah, and think about that. I was taught growing up, my daddy would have slapped me on the top of the head if I didn't walk on the outside of my mother. I had to walk street side, and I had to follow my mother up the stairs, and I had to precede her down the stairs. And I'd have gotten a real severe talking to if I didn't jump out and hold my mama's door open, if I didn't hold the door open for a woman walking through. And see, now that would be considered sexist, and I just think it's being a gentleman, like you said.
Yeah, guys, just a tip from Oris, the old guy: opening that car door for it goes a long way. It's a
my goodness,
art.
the payoffs are great. They do appreciate it, and I don't care what they say. I believe in women's hearts. See, but it's not societal, accepted by society right now, that it's okay to say thank you so much, because then they would look weak if they allowed us to do that. That's a shame. I hold the door open for old guys. I hold the door open for anybody. It's just being a good person.
Yeah. Sometimes I hold the door open so long that I have my hand out for a tip after the fifth person goes through.
You know, I'm also bad at saying you're welcome, because nobody says thank you anymore either.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, I think it's I think you're absolutely correct. I think it's hard for young women and for young men to function in society today because they're getting so many conflicting messages about what it means to be a man or a woman. The whole concept, and this is something that I've said on other occasions, is that a man or a young man that is losing his manhood, his manliness, is not being feminized, because men and women are on two parallel tracks. They're different, but it's not really the feminization. It's actually just a loss of manliness that's occurring. Because I'll tell you, I know some pretty strong women. I'm married to one. I got two daughters that are incredibly strong, and they're also incredibly feminine. But it's not the feminization of men, but that some people refer to. I think it's actually just the loss of manhood by itself, and going into kind of a void that exists.
And I would agree with that. The problem, we look at the recent report by the American Psychological Association that said masculinity in general is harmful. And then it talked about some of the attributes that they associated with masculinity. And they said assertiveness and dominance and defensiveness and the need to control. By the way, you have a strong wife, I have a strong wife, you have two strong daughters. I'll guarantee you, and we know this because we've been married to mothers, nobody can defend their babies like a mama bear.
Yeah.
They know how to be defensive. They know how to be assertive. They are in control. They know how to dominate. That is such a sexist thing to say, that women don't have those same attributes. But any trait taken to an extreme can be harmful. That's what I'm saying. I said earlier, we need to attack toxicity, not masculinity and not femininity.
Yeah. People underestimate the power of estrogen.
And you said we were on parallel tracks. People don't want that to be the case. They want it to be one track. And not understanding that, for me at least, the fact that we're different was sort of the attraction to begin with. Mm-hmm. I love women who are strong women. I like them to be bold and confident, and I like for them to be able to take care of themselves. And I like if a woman needs me, I find that kind of unattractive. I like a woman who's very capable, all on her own. That's very attractive to me. Mm-hmm. But see, I think women like for their men to be just the same way. What woman wants a man who needs her? It's that old, you complete me. Well, that means there's something lacking in you. Who wants somebody else in their life who has that lacking, that you need the presence of another human being to be whole? That's not attractive, in my opinion.
Yeah, no. I think in a lot of ways, and this may not be true for all women, but I think a lot of women, they're always looking for a combination of a little bit of a bad boy, a little bit edgy, and a gentleman. All wrapped up nicely in proportion. And not to where you get to be a jerk, not to where you get to that point where you're a total jerk, because there are.
There's a difference in confidence and arrogance. Confidence is attractive. Arrogance is repulsive. And so what you're talking about there is a well-balanced person. And I think men like that, and I like guys who are like that. My friends are like that. My friends are all well-balanced people. We can have a drink like you and I are right now. We can smoke a cigar together, laugh and talk. But if there was a weak one among us who didn't have opinions and didn't know how to stand up for himself, you wouldn't be friends with that person for long.
No.
And I don't think women would either among their friends. I don't think we tolerate that in a human being. And yet we encourage that at this point among our boys and girls. Don't ever stand up for yourself. Don't speak up for what you really believe. Don't be opinionated. Don't have a stance. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
That's
this whole thing about standing up for yourself, we've gotten to the point where people, and I'm going to say this is both men and women, are told to go to the teacher, to go to this. It's a fine line there. It's a fine line. But, at some point, you got to be able to take care of business on your own. You got to be able to take care of stuff, to handle stuff without somebody coming in and bailing you out all the time.
Yeah, you do. And I do think that the first thing you do, and I've got grandsons, and I got a son who, both my sons are very strong about that. And, it's to never start a fight, but don't let anybody push you around and kick you around and bully you either. You got to learn to say, no, this is not acceptable with me. And you can run and tell an adult, which you should at some level. Don't get in a fight at school, but you don't let anybody lay hands on you and abuse you. You've got to take up for yourself. Women should do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I spent a lot of time with my girls about that. And, they actually can take care of themselves pretty well. They did a couple of years of Krav Maga, so they can both.
They got a program now for little kids.
Pardon me?
The Krav Maga, they've got a kids program right now, and it's an excellent program for children.
Yeah, well, they did it when they were young teenagers.
Now they got it for elementary school kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great idea. You got to be able to take care of yourself. You've got to.
Yeah, and the confidence that you have that moves you forward too in life is pretty incredible.
And probably that's the most important part, is the confidence it gives you that you will not be physically victimized by another person. That confidence is very important.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about older guys. How do we function in the 21st century? Do we just continue being our old selves and say the hell with it?
Yeah, you damn kids, get off my lawn. Maybe at some point there is a part of that there's actually a role. At some point, you get to the point you say, I fought the good fight. I had a friend tell me the other day, he said, there comes a time in the life of every general where you plant your flag, declare victory, and leave the field of battle. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's really profound. The sad thing for me right now is seeing old guys having all this cosmetic surgery so they can stay relevant in the world. Where they are trying to modify their stance so they can get along better in the society that old guys like you and I are more confused about every single day. And I think that's a shame. I think it's okay for old guys to say, I understand times are different now, but my values are not different. So I think what old guys have to do is be uncompromising on their values and learn to sit back and enjoy and not worry so much about it that it drives them nuts. And that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Because you're being bombarded all the time. Sometimes you're being called names. Sometimes you're being attacked.
I have death threats. I get emails that are just horrible. I got an email not very long ago where it says, I hope you get shot and killed. I hope your wife gets raped and gets cancer, and that your kids both get run over and die. And it was all because I made a statement about fiscal responsibility on TV. And I said, let me see, I'm telling you that nobody owes you anything and you ought to save your money and you ought to do and pay your bills and all that. And so that's what you wish upon me? Really? And
wow.
So, yeah, and that's how violent and rude and mean people can become anonymously. They would never say that shit to my face.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
Yeah, exactly. I call them keyboard cowards.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
That's the only place they got any balls is on the keyboard when they're typing, and you can't get in touch with them. So, and that's sort of a shame. So I think old guys at some point have to stick to their values, treat people with respect. But I think you also, at some point, your wisdom kicks in, and you step back and you go, I can't fight every battle. I know it's wrong, but I can't fight every battle. So what I'm going to do, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, I'm going to take care of me and mine.
Mm. Yeah, that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. So what's in the future for Larry? Anything coming down the less?
Less is in the future. I am maybe in the process now of planting my flag and declaring victory. I will continue to do more one-on-one coaching where people, and I coach a lot of people who want to grow up and be me. I help people write books and write their keynotes and build a brand. And I've been very fortunate in my career at learning how to do that. The hard way, I earned my following. Having tangible value to them. And so I'm helping people do that. But I'm going to do less and less travel and keynotes on the road. And I think there comes a time when you sort of reevaluate your travel situation, your family situation, and you start to enjoy what you've worked really hard to obtain. You start to enjoy it. You're old enough, just like I am, to know a lot of guys who worked their ass off to make a lot of money, and they never figured out how to enjoy what they had earned. I'm not going to be that guy.
Oh, well, I think, if you enjoy what you're doing, which I am at this point in my life, then I see no reason to stop what I'm doing.
No, you just get to choose how you do it.
Choose to do it. Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to stay. I traveled 250 days a year for over 20 years of my career. That's too damn much travel. So I will spend less time on airplanes, more time with my wife and my grandkids. I do a podcast for men as well. It's called the Real Man Podcast. I'll continue to write. I'll have another book. I'm sure that as I wrap it up, probably be out next year, I would expect. But my road warrior days are coming to an end.
Larry, if anybody wants to get a hold of you for your personal coaching services, where do they go?
Just go to LarryWinget.com. Anybody, you ought to be able to find me, LarryWinget.com.
Yeah.
Larry Winget on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook, the Larry Winget fan page, Twitter, any social media outlet. You can listen to my podcast. I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere at this point.
Okay.
Except on airplanes.
Yeah, I just posted that website. Yeah, you're not hard to find when you Google your name.
No, there's a lot of stuff out there. And you can always tune in. I do a bunch of TV, and I'll continue to do TV more and more and more.
Yeah. So, what was the most unusual TV thing you've done?
Oh, whoops! Not my computer off. I've done a lot of different kinds of spots over the year. I had my own show on A&E for 2 years called Big Spender, where people who are in financial trouble, and I would go in and do an intervention of sorts. And holy crap, I dealt with a lot of stupid people on that show. I had a woman on the show that was over $500,000 in credit card debt, and she made $35,000 a year. And her husband delivered pizza for a living. And when I walked in her house, she turned on me and shook her finger in my face and said, "Don't you dare yell at me. None of this is my fault." if they had quit. She had 56 credit cards, by the way. She said, if those companies would quit sending me credit cards, I would quit maxing them out. And I thought, holy crap, I've heard it all now. But see, that's the ability for people to blame a credit card company for the fact that they're maxing them out and now are over $500,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah. So what was the end result there on that one? That seems like that's like there's no solution.
Nah, there's not a lot of solution to a deal like that. The deal is on those kind of shows, and this was in the early reality TV stuff. Those kind of shows, I learned that people on the show rarely learn anything. They're already to the extreme. But it's people watching the show that say, I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid, thank God, and maybe I can make a difference now. And so those are the people who actually learn. The people on the show, I'm not sure they ever learn very much. Yeah. And a guy stopped me in the airport the other day and said, Larry, where do you find all these stupid people that you talk about in your books, on your podcast and all that stuff? I said, are you kidding me? I could throw a rock right now and hit 20. I mean, there's no shortage of stupid people doing stupid things out there.
Oh, yeah. See it every day, every day. All right. Well, Larry, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program today. It was a pleasure having a cigar and a drink with you, and
appreciate that.
Maybe sometime we can do it in the future. If I'm down in Phoenix, so do it in person, or if you are up in Las Vegas, where I'm at, please give a holler. And I think we covered a lot of ground, had a lot of fun talking about stuff.
We did. We'll piss somebody off, I'll guarantee you.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Larry, I'm not anywhere near as famous as you are, so I don't have a legion of haters yet. I'm looking forward to building.
God. That's what you need. I'm serious. I told a guy the other day, I said, you can't build a rabid fan base until you got a rabid haters base. You really can't.
Absolutely. I'm looking for haters.
I'll give you some of mine. They're wearing me out.
Yeah, or as they call them now, they call them trolls.
Oh, goodness gracious, that's the truth. There's a bunch of them out there. I'll be happy to share. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, Larry, you have a great night. This is Orris, the old guy from www.oldguytalks.com signing off. And remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love. If you are interested in creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love, then become a member at oldguytalks.com and get access to the cave area, where not only do I have my interviews with doctors on cutting-edge therapies for erectile dysfunction, but I will have other things that are posted in there that will help you create that kick-ass life that you want for yourself and others. And we're going to be talking a lot about different kinds of vices and virtues. So opt in and become a member